So what I'd like to share with you today is some really exciting research that we've been working on, which is around native verges, so native plants on street verges, and we've been looking at this particularly in the city of Perth. So I'm sure I don't need to convince you that street verges and urban vegetation are important, but I would like to give you a little bit of a snapshot as to why we were particularly interested in this idea of planting native vegetation along street verges. This is actually something that's relatively common in Perth. It's probably less common in other parts of Australia from what I've heard from speaking with other people. So if you think about these small areas, they might seem really small in isolation, but once you start to add them up together, they can be a really significant area in total. In Perth, almost all of our local government areas actually allow people, so residents, it can be the person who owns the land or the person who's renting the land or who's resident in that property, almost all of them allow you to plant low-growing vegetation. So not only are Perth local government areas allowing people to plant verge gardens, provided they stick within the guidelines, there's also a range of supports and incentives that are being offered. This ranges from offering a list of suitable plants all the way through to some local governments which actually offer financial incentives and rebates to redo the entire verge and even allow people to have one-on-one consultations with landscape architects to look at the most suitable plants and designs for their verge. So there's a wide range of things you can do. Planting verge gardens, while it is becoming normalised, is still not really all that common. Okay, we're talking probably less than 5% of residential verges include native plants. So the most important thing was to actually see examples of other verges. So people would walk around their neighbourhood, they'd see what their neighbours were doing, they'd see what worked, what plants they liked. They might even go and have a chat with their neighbour and say, hey, where did you get that plant from? What is that? Can I do this? So it really shows the importance of setting up demonstration verges, if that's a possibility, or promoting advocates of verge gardening to have people come and have a look at their verge gardens. Perhaps even verge garden tourism is a possibility here. So seeing those physical examples was really, really important. Now, the social side of verge gardening was something that was really interesting to us. Now, the neighbourhood connections that people get through verge gardening are very varied. You're in a public space. People feel quite comfortable to go up to you while you're in your verge garden and start talking to you about it. And finally, we had some examples of people who had met their neighbours through verge gardening. So getting to know a few people that you don't normally get to know. This particular person was explaining to us an incident where one of her neighbours actually brought out jam and scones and cream because she thought she was working so hard. And she mentioned that you're constantly talking to people, people that you don't even know. So it adds to that sense of neighbourly connection and social wellbeing. One of the things that we noticed was that, of course, we had a peak of flowering in Jilba, which is sort of August and September here into October and November. But it's really important to try and make sure that you do have plants that flower throughout the main activity period for native pollinators. We found 8 different native bee species visiting verge gardens. We think this is just a small snapshot of the kinds of insects that we're visiting, but it is proof that these small patches can provide habitat and food, particularly for native bee species. Many local endemic species are suitable and available for what is quite a harsh environment of verge gardens, but they do require preparation. It's not just set and forget. There has been a really important role of state government programs that have accelerated uptake. And one key thing that bound all those very diverse network of stakeholders together was that the importance of trees for shade and for amenity is agreed upon as critical across the board. So thank you very much. Wish I could be there in person to talk to you. Looking forward to the Q&A session. And here are some QR codes for our reports, just in case you missed them earlier.